This is the Royal Report.
Good evening and welcome to the Royal Report. I'm Caroline DeRusso. Here's what we've got coming up on the show tonight. The Royal Christmas festivities are well and truly begun. Russell Myers joins me to discuss who made it to the King and Queen's guest list and who didn't. We'll tell you which actress on The Crown secured a coveted Dior deal instead of Meghan Markle. Plus, a piece of iconic royal memorabilia has sold at auction for a record price. The details later in the show. But first, let's talk about Christmas. It's only 3 sleeps away. And for those of us who celebrate Christmas, well, by now we are well and truly into the swing of getting things ready. Wrapping gifts, cooking food, wrangling relatives, deciding which mass to go to, getting the pink champagne on ice, and hoping someone doesn't launch into a monologue on the Middle East during the entree. The royal family, in many ways, isn't that different in how they celebrate Christmas. Every December, after a string of charity events and season giving, the royal family travels to Sandringham Estate for their Christmas break. And it's a festive period steeped in tradition, much of which harks back to the family's German roots. The family attends a black tie Christmas dinner on Christmas Eve. Gifts are also exchanged on Christmas Eve, a very continental tradition. Then on Christmas Day, they attend a church service at St Mary Magdalene on Sandringham Estate and then enjoy a Christmas lunch together. Former royal chef Darren Grady has this week reflected on how normal and boring the royal family Christmas meals are. There's no ham, just a traditional turkey served with mashed and roast potatoes, chestnut or sage and onion stuffing, cranberry sauce, bread sauce. Vegetables include Brussels sprouts, carrots and roast parsnips. After the main course, they're said to enjoy a traditional homemade Christmas pudding decorated in holly and, well, as we all like it, doused in brandy. After lunch, they enjoy a game of charades. The irony of that particular tradition is not lost on any of us. And of course, the King will also broadcast his Christmas address to the Commonwealth. He gave his first address last year in carrying on from the late Queen, who gave her first Christmas address in 1952, which address was then televised from 1957. Here's some of the message she gave that year.
My own family often gather round to watch television, as they are at this moment. And that is how I imagine you now. I believe in our qualities and in our strength. I believe that together we can set an example to the world, which will encourage upright people everywhere. I hope that 1958 may bring you God's blessing and all the things you long for. And so I wish you all, young and old, wherever you may be, all the fun and enjoyment and the peace of a very happy Christmas.
Wasn't she divine? And one last thing, a Christmas update on the late Queen's corgis. Muick and Sandy are doing well. They're living the dream and they appear to have the Duchess of York wrapped around their little paws. Joining us now is News Corp columnist Louise Roberts and media commentator Melissa Hoyer. Ladies, welcome to the show. Louise, every family Christmas event has its challenges. What are the challenges that the royal family are planning for?
Hi, Cara. Hi, Melissa. Look, the challenge is the spectre of the Sussexes, isn't it? What are they going to do on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Boxing Day? Are they going to come out with any announcements? Are they going to make any sort of grand statements? How do they mitigate for that sort of behaviour? I don't believe they're going to turn up in the UK. I can't see that happening at all. But I guess the other issue for King Charles is any information that may leak from the sort of esteemed lunch they have at Sandringham and the church service. He'd be worried about that being sold in a commercial deal or somehow used by the Sussexes, because he really has encouraged the family to close ranks and not reveal anything of a deeply personal nature to Harry when he calls, or indeed Meghan. So I think it will be fraught. I mean, we would have liked to have not been in this position a year on from last year, where we were talking about Megxit and talking about the sort of bitterness of Christmas, but it seems that we're still in that position now. So hopefully they'll all have a great Christmas and there won't be any truth bombs coming from California to destroy a Christmas in the UK for the royal family.
Now, Melissa, surely a Sussex-free Christmas is a stress-free Christmas?
Oh, it is, but it ain't going to be a stress-free Christmas. I mean, something will happen. And I don't necessarily mean between what's happening in the UK and then over in Los Angeles. But, more likely the Sussexes will do something that will sort of basically shove it up the royal family. Who knows what that'll be. But I think they'll probably make quite a pointed point that no, we're not in Britain. We are in LA. We're having the best time with our celebrity friends. So they'll certainly, they'll have a lovely time, and they'll have their two children and their LA sort of posse around them. But the two families, as Louise had said, they're totally separate now, and even becoming, I think, more separated as the time goes on. Because I think that it won't happen when the day will come and they'll be sort of welcomed with open arms back to the family and back to the UK. I don't think that's going to happen sort of ever, to be honest.
Louise, lots of people are taking a break at this time. We understand the Sussexes are taking a mini break to Costa Rica before Christmas. Is that right?
They have. They've been sunning themselves in Costa Rica, which is a bit of a A-list bolt hole. I guess Shakira's been there and a few other sort of celebrity pals, and we know that they tend to go to a holiday resort where they know there's a bit of celebrity interest. No mention of a private jet this time, which was good to see in a way. Apparently they were also soaking up the culture and the sort of general lifestyle of Costa Rica. I don't think the children were there. I think it was just Harry and Meghan away for another trip. They were in the Caribbean, of course, in October. A lot of people do take a break. It was a bit curious, though, that we find out about this trip in Costa Rica and what the kind of point of it was. But why didn't they go to the UK? I know I keep saying that, but maybe that would have been a better trip to take.
Perhaps. And Melissa, you spoke a little bit before, but do we know exactly what the Sussexes have planned for Christmas?
No, just what we've read and seen, and let's face it, we are not there. We don't know, but I would imagine, and this is just what I've read, they will just have, a lovely probably Christmas Eve event with their LA friends and obviously Meghan's mother. And Christmas Day probably really hanging out at that sort of fabulously big house, just doing sort of Christmassy things, with bonbons and opening presents and all that sort of stuff. So, I don't think they're going to have like the big sort of let's book in the marquee and have like 2,000 people there. I think it'll just be like really most people are trying to do around the world, hopefully quite a sort of a restrained Christmas, because I think that is sort of the thing that celebrities, and that's what they are now, really need to be seen to be doing. So just, toning it all down a bit.
I always love to see the words Sussexes and restrained in the same sentence. Anyway, speaking of, this week, Meghan has appeared in an Instagram coffee ad. Here it is.
I want to give a huge shout out to our amazing, clever team here at HQ. Without them, we are nothing. Our fulfillment crew, lovingly packing your lattes. They've been listening to Britney on loop since 2019. Our very smart, only slightly nerdy digital team, making sure the website doesn't crash again like it did last year. Finally, the glue that literally holds us all together. Our incredible, resilient fulfillment team that have helped make 2022 such a big success.
Louise, how did this land with you?
Well, look, it's the first time we've seen Meghan do any kind of acting which is sort of remotely humorous. We know Harry has a fantastic sense of humour, as do the rest of his family. The most successful royals, of course, have a great sense of humour. So to see Meghan sort of attempting humour, I'm not going to actually knock her for it, because my view has been, which I've shared with you before, is they need to get more humour into their shtick. They need to be more self-deprecating and, making more jokes about themselves first rather than other people making jokes about them. South Park is a classic example as well. So I didn't mind it. I think if this is the path she's going to take, to be a bit more funny, a bit more humorous, it will actually make her more relatable.
Yeah. And also she...
Melissa, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I believe she has money in the coffee company, so there's sort of a method to her madness. And let's face it, if you've invested money, into a company, and you are Meghan, and you will be talked about like we are now, of course you're going to sort of make a bit of an appearance in the ad. So I actually think good on her for doing that. I mean, if you want your money to make money, get into the ad that's promoting it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, Louise, one of Diana's dresses is sold at auction this week at a record price. Can you run us through it? Because this is really rather an extraordinary auction result.
That's right. It's a beautiful blue and black sort of star dress by Azagure. I think I've pronounced that right, the designer. It was expected to get about 100k Australian. It got 1.1 million, bought by apparently a superfan. And we were just talking earlier about what the superfan will do with said gown, whether they'll put it in a beautiful Perspex box and admire it forever, hopefully not wear it, which is what of course happened with Marilyn Monroe's dress. So it just shows the value of anything that was worn by Diana, and those beautiful iconic gowns that she had just really hold their value. And I was really quite chuffed to see this, that, in this day and age and the revival of the Diana interest, of course, with the crown, that her items and heirlooms are still so precious to many people around the world. So I thought it was an amazing story. What an incredible price, 1.1 million for a dress.
I thought it was absolutely exceptional.
I'll tell you a funny story. Going back to a number of years ago, Miranda Devine, of course, who is a News Corp columnist, she went to an auction in London and bid on behalf of the Telegraph newspaper, and I was at the Telegraph then, and we bought a dress, and it was that. If you remember, that it was a ruffled floral dress. It was sort of in blues and whites, and there was this big sort of ruffle that sort of ran down the side. So if I'm getting this right. So News Corp bought the dress, and then I think gave it away in a competition with the paper. So I'd love to know where that dress is now in Australia, because it was actually quite an iconic. I mean, they all were, but this particular one was sort of not normally her style, but it was a real showstopper. So it was just a funny sort of story and that was way back, when it was only a couple of years after she had died.
Yeah, well, that there's definitely worth following up. I think that there is going to be on my to-do list over Christmas. Now, King Charles is facing calls to upgrade Edward and Sophie in the royal family title stakes. Louise, these two have been loyal and reliable servants, more so than others. I've only got about 40 seconds or so to go. Tell us, do you think they deserve the hereditary titles?
Absolutely, and they've got to keep earning it as well, which I believe they will, because they have stepped into the breach where, of course, Meghan and Harry left the country as well, and they've redeemed themselves. Any sort of issues around sort of PR disasters and stuff before that, they are totally solid. They're adored by William and Kate. They're adored by everyone in the royal family, particularly, of course, by King Charles himself. So why not? I mean, it's not going to hurt to actually elevate them and give them the prestige they deserve, because that is the price of loyalty, I think, in the royal family.
Yep.
I think it absolutely is, and I think you'd struggle to find someone to disagree with you. Ladies, that's all we've got time for. I've got to get to a break. Thank you so much, Louise Roberts and Melissa Hoyer. Thank you for joining me tonight. Now, up after the break, Russell Myers joins me on the latest with the Prince Andrew scandal, plus Dior stub Meghan Markle. We'll find out which actress they've partnered with instead of the Duchess. Welcome back to the show. Joining us now is Royal Editor for the Daily Mirror, Russell Myers. Russell, fast approaching the end of the year. But, in recent times, and we've definitely talked about it a lot this year, there's been a much more obvious crossover between royalty and celebrity. But apparently this week, there's some noses out of joint about a deal with Dior.
Well, of course. How you doing, Cara? I mean, never short from controversy, are we, when we're talking about the Royals? And it's been a pretty packed 2023. Really thinking about what's going to happen next year. It's been so fast and furious over the last 12 months. But, a bit of a rumblings. I mean, let's take it back a little bit. We had Harry in the Dior suit, if you remember, when he turned up to the coronation. A bit of controversy about that. But, of course, he's welcome to make deals in the private market. talks of whether Meghan Markle was going to be the new face of Dior, and perhaps some noses put out of joint now because it's just been announced that Meg Bellamy, the star of The Crown, who played Kate Middleton in the last series, is going to be the new face of the French fashion house. So I think these things happen, don't they, in sort of fashion land. One person gets mentioned that they're going to be the new bright young thing, and then another person takes over. But I think 2024, as Meghan Markle said, they've got a few exciting things on the slate, and it'll be interesting to see what the pair of them have ready for us next year.
Now, on to Prince Andrew. Look, his close relationship with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein has seen him well and truly relegated to the royal family backbench. And, you know, fair enough. We understand that relationship is likely to hit the media again. What's the update and why now?
Well, incredible. I mean, you're still talking about the sort of tawdry aspect of Prince Andrew's relationship with the late convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. And now, on December the 18th, a judge in Manhattan has said that's a new case involving Joanna Soberg. She was the woman who accused Prince Andrew of groping her back in 2001 when he was playing with a spitting image puppet of himself, and there's a meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, Ghislaine Maxwell's serving a huge prison sentence in jail at the moment, and this case could really sort of rumble the high and powerful figures of people that Jeffrey Epstein mixed with. Now, the unsealing of these documents will take place, we get related to this case with Joanna Soberg and Ghislaine Maxwell, sometime after January 1st. So you can imagine the sort of furious pace that sort of these rich and powerful men are working with their lawyers over the Christmas period to try and appeal the fact that they don't want to be named in this judgment. So will Prince Andrew be named in it? It is most likely that he will be dragged into this long-running saga, and a big saga for him it is, because he's had to step back in disgrace from his public role. Talking about the sort of fall from grace that he's had, it's been absolutely complete now, and it'll be more uncomfortable headlines for the royal family, I think, if he is named in this judgment.
Now, in my editorial, I spoke about the royal family's Christmas traditions. Now, who's coming to Christmas this year, and are they doing anything differently than perhaps they've done in the past?
Well, during the week on Wednesday, we had so it used to be called the Buckingham Palace pre-Christmas lunch. It's been held at Windsor Castle the last few years. It's a chance for the extended family to all get together. We saw the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh with Lady Louise coming back down from university. She's at St Andrews at the moment. We saw some of the sort of fringe royals, maybe the Princess Eugenie, Princess Beatrice was there with her husband, the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester. But then, it will be time for the royals to descend on Sandringham in Norfolk over the next couple of days. And then this will be a chance for the sort of senior royals and closest family to get together. The traditional turkey dinner on Christmas Day, the thing that they do, the royal family, they exchange gifts on Christmas Eve because they have a big ball, black tie ball on the day before Christmas. And I think, it's a chance for Charles and Camilla to bring together their blended families, because Camilla's children are going to be invited as well. So there's going to be quite a packed schedule for the royals over the next few days, and no doubt we'll see them walking to church and engaging with some of the members of the public who come out to see them. But, definitely foot off the gas in terms of work and engagement over the next few days.
But the King is also broadcasting his address to the Commonwealth, which is obviously part of the tradition. However, we understand the King is perhaps taking his own direction a little bit this year, could potentially risk upsetting his aides. What's his planned divergence here?
Well, certainly, when Charles makes these speeches, he does them off the cuff, but that might cause a bit of nervousness in the palace. I mean, obviously, the King's message has been recorded already. It will go out on Christmas Day throughout the Commonwealth. And I think that when you look at what Charles will potentially say, no doubt it will be about unity, togetherness, whether he ends up mentioning certain members of the family. Sometimes he does mention the work of the Prince and Princess as well. Some people have said he won't mention Harry and Meghan at all. I can't imagine that he will, but I think it will be about, unifying force. The fact of sort of his first official year in the job, 6 months after the coronation, there's a lot to be discussed. And I think that, when Charles makes these speeches, I think we saw it in the Queen's Diamond Jubilee, where he sort of was seen scribbling out his notes, even in the royal box, and then made a fantastic speech that sort of roused the nation. So I think it'll be hard-hitting, all about unity and togetherness, and trying to look forward to a fantastic year next year.
Now, Prince William has had to travel overseas unexpectedly this week, no doubt disrupting plans in the lead up to Christmas. Can you run us through why he's taking this urgent trip at the end of the year?
Well, yes, a sudden trip. The Emir of Kuwait had sadly passed away. He'd only been in the role for about 3 years. But Prince William flew to Kuwait to represent the King, to offer the royal family's condolences. The Royal Family Association with the Kuwaiti royal family goes back, an awful long time. And I think it was right that on behalf of the royal family, but also on behalf of the nation, that Prince William was able to go over there to offer his condolences, like many other statesmen and members of sort of our foreign royal families.
Now, Russell, this is going to be our last chat for the year, and I want to thank you for your observations and insights over the course of the year. You've been a really important contributor to our show. So to finish up, can I please have your royal highlights and lowlights for 2023?
Well, Cara, that's very nice. It's been a great topsy-turvy year. Love coming on the show. I mean, listen, of course we can't get away from the coronation. It was a perfect sort of display of pomp and pageantry and splendour. Can you believe it is nearly 12 months since Prince Harry's book Spare hit the shelves? I mean, we're going to be still talking about that, not only for years, for decades to come, and sort of the fallout of the royal family. But there's been some good baby news when Princess Eugenie has welcomed, new baby into the world. I think we've had... What else have we had? We've had a bit of sort of trials and tribulations, a bit of infighting, whether we will see the Sussexes come back to not necessarily his Christmas dinner this year, but maybe back to the UK in some form to sort of spend some time with the family. But I think it's going to be a big year next year for the royal family. We're going to see a lot more foreign travel. We're going to get down under with Charles and Camilla next October, which I'm really looking forward to. So there's an awful lot to look forward to for next year.
Absolutely, there is. Russell Myers, thank you so much for today and for the whole year. We will see you next year.
Will do. Cheers, Carrie. Merry Christmas.
Now, just before we go, a life to celebrate. The King's champion, Francis Dimmock, has passed away at the age of 68. His role involved bearing the royal standard and walking in the coronation procession. However, if the circumstances were ever to have arisen, Mr Dimmock, like generations of ancestors before him, would have been required to fight a duel, potentially to the death, to defend the honour of the monarch. It's the role which has been passed down 34 generations of the Dimmock family since 1066, when William the Conqueror created the office. We love a bit of royal curiosity on this show. And that's it for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Up next is Pioneer Spirit. Good night, Merry Christmas, and we will see you next Friday.